There are three guiding principles of believers' life. One, for God's sake. Two, for my soul's sake. Three, for heaven's sake. For God's sake, I am obeying this commandment because he created me and demands obedience from me. Although others are enjoying, others are benefiting from my obedience, others are benefiting from my submission to this commandment, to this rule, yet that their benefit, of course, they should benefit, but I'm not obeying this mainly for their benefit, but for God's sake. For God's sake, he who made me and gave me commandment to keep, I am keeping this commandment for him. Then, for my soul's sake, because my soul can be lost, I can go to hell. If I fail to obey this commandment, I will go to hell. And I don't want my soul to be lost. And because I don't want to be lost, I don't want to be damned, I don't want to be destroyed, I don't want to end up in hell, I must obey. For my soul's sake. Then, for heaven's sake. Because I want to go to heaven. I have heard of heaven. I have heard of the bliss of heaven, of the joy of heaven, of the eternity of heaven, and I want to be there. And to be in heaven, I must keep his commandments. I must do this thing, and because I want to be in heaven, I will obey. These principles apply to your marriage. As an unmarried man, for God's sake, how should your marriage be? You must marry according to the word of God, because he created you. Whatever you do unto him. Whether you live or die, you are his. So make sure your marriage is according to his will, for God's sake. You must obey. Don't marry anyhow. The God of life has given you guiding principles. Not to follow those guiding principles mean disobedience unto him. And because you are for God, you are a child of God, you must marry according to his pattern. Do it the way he wants. If you fail to follow the pattern of God, the word of God, as an unmarried person wanting to marry, you fail to follow God's commandment guiding marriage, then you know your soul is in danger. And for your soul's sake, because you don't want your soul to be damned in hell, many for marriage's sake have gone to hell because of what the mistakes of marriage. They married anyhow, they are now in hell. And because you don't want to go to hell, you must follow biblical principles. Then, for heaven's sake, you want to go to heaven, and you know a good wife, what the good wife will do to contribute to your going to heaven, what the good godly husband will do to contribute to your going to heaven. And for this heaven's sake, since you're mindful to be in heaven, you must marry according to the will of God, for heaven's sake. Then what about those who have married already? Same principles, for God's sake. The commandment guiding the marriage union has been given. God has commanded you as a married man, as a married woman, what to do in that marriage. Your position in that marriage, God has told you already and is expecting obedience, because the marriage union is an institution of God. He instituted it, he gave rules guiding it, and for God's sake you must keep those rules. whether your wife qualifies or not, whether your husband qualifies or not, you are keeping the rule for God's sake. You're relating with her according to biblical principle for God's sake. Again, for your soul's sake. If you don't do it, if you get out of order in that marriage, you get out of the way in that marriage and begin to follow the bush path, you will be damned. You will be damned. So for your soul's sake, however hard, however difficult, like as hard, maybe as John Wesley's case, that the wife got the hair of his head and was pulling it to pull it out, and he was following the wife without slapping her, without pushing her down, why? Because if I do that, my soul is lost. For my soul's sake, I must maintain righteousness in that marriage. I don't want my soul to be lost. Unfortunate, I have found myself in this yoke. But I must do all to ensure I don't go to hell. Then, for heaven's sake, yes, you want to go to heaven. Everything that will qualify you to go to heaven must be done. Every discipline must be observed. That whether the marriage partner is a Christian or not a Christian, backslides on the way or maintains godliness, all that matters is yourself. All that matters is yourself, to ensure you go to this heaven. Then you must do all that will qualify you to go to heaven.